Thank you for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Chim Young-gil in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. The benchmark Kospi is back above the 2,400 mark, hitting the highest level in more than a month, tracking gains in Wall Street amid improved investor sentiment. Korea's trade surplus with China is on a steady decline, with investments in China also plummeting as Beijing continues with its economic retaliation aimed at Seoul. These stories and more coming right up. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix are set to reach combined chip sales of over 100 trillion won this year, roughly equal to $88 billion. Analysts say the firms are set for a record-breaking year due to growing demand for DRAM and NAND memory chips used in smartphones and computers. This comes amid the industry's so-called super cycle fueled by the fourth industrial revolution, with Apple's iPhone X widely forecast to be a big seller. The high demand for memory chips used in the device are expected to prolong the industry-wide boom. However, the semiconductor industry could lose steam starting next year, with analysts saying market players should start looking for new areas of growth. Korea's large semiconductor and display firms will invest a combined 51.9 trillion won into the local economy over the next 7 years. That is equivalent to $46 billion. Senior officials from 9 companies, including Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, and LG Display, made the pledge during a meeting with the Minister of Trade, Industry, and Energy earlier today. They talked strategy to push the tech industry to the next level, wary of competition from China, which has been quickly closing the gap in recent years. The investment is expected to come in the form of next-generation facilities and high-skilled jobs. And now moving on to our coverage of markets, we have our contributor Lee Ji-hye on the line with us. Hello, Ji-hye.
Hello, Myung-gil.
So tell us how local stocks performed on this Monday.
Stocks traded mostly higher all across the board today, with some major markets hitting record highs as the Kospi index bounced back into the 2,400 territory, closing 1.35% higher at 2,418.21. The tech-heavy Kosdaq closed 0.68% higher to close at 675.87. Market bellwether Samsung Electronics jumped 4.13%, SK Hynix up 3.24%, Naver up 2.76%, and Samsung CNT up 7.06%. These are major rebounds after a sluggish couple of weeks. POSCO traded flat, while LG Chem shed 1.5%. And by sectors on the upward slope was furniture, venture capital, as well as independent power producers, while on the other hand, space technology, stationery, and biotech were on the decline.
Right. Yeah. Now, looking ahead, what are some major market events to look forward to this week?
Well, starting off on Tuesday, the U.S. Federal Reserve will convene for its two-day FOMC meeting. A rate hike is not expected at this month's meeting, but there's a high possibility for the start of balance sheet unwinding. Inflation will yet again be at the core of the discussion, as well as the potential economic impact from hurricanes Harvey and Irma. The FOMC meeting will conclude on the following day, where the central bank will make its policy announcements and release its economic forecast. In regards to rates, most analysts see the FOMC holding the federal funds target at the 1 to 1.25% range. As for Thursday, South Korea's finance ministry will be announcing its auction plan for treasury bonds for the month of October, as well as the results of its bond sales in September. This comes after a government official was quoted as saying that the BOK is rather reluctant to issue additional bonds to weak demand. Over in Japan, the BOJ's board meeting will be held also on Thursday. Analysts expect the BOJ to stand pat with its core CPI inflation on a moderate uptrend, but there is a lot of attention on government Kuroda's answers on the downtrend in global long-term interest rates, as well as a predicted FOMC decision to reduce its balance sheet. Lastly, for Friday, the Atlanta Fed's business inflation expectation survey will be announced after weak retail sales and industrial output reports prompted the Atlanta Fed to slash its third quarter GDP estimates as of last week.
Right, back to the local markets, the operating margin of Korea's top 100 listed companies fell according to a report. Can you tell us more on that, Jie?
Sure, Myung-gil. According to Chaebol.com, statistics show that Korea's leading firms have been posting a much lower average operating margin as of last month. From 2007 to last year, the number stood at 5.8%, while the figure from 2014 to 2016 was a drop to 5.48%. Around 60 companies out to 100 saw their 3-year median hover well below the average for the past decade, including market bellwether Samsung Electronics. As for Hyundai Motors, it's been impacted by the feud between Seoul and Beijing over the THAAD deployment, with the 3-year operating margin coming down to 8.28% compared with the 10-year average of 8.39%. SK Hynix posted the best improvement over the cited period, seeing an operating margin of 25.07% for the past 3 years, which is quite a jump from the decade average of 10.98%. This has been Lee Ji-hye for Business Daily.
Online portal companies, specifically Naver and Kakao, have been very successful in carving out handsome market shares in the domestic market. As the government keeps an eye on the newly designated conglomerate, others point out their social contributions need to keep pace as well. Eunice Kim has the details.
As more and more Koreans go online for their media consumption needs, unsurprisingly, ad sales are also heading to web portals. Heavyweights Naver and Kakao both attracted nearly $2.6 billion in ad sales last year. Compare that to the less than $2.5 billion raked in by the top 3 terrestrial TV stations and all domestic newspapers combined. They're dual-handedly beating out traditional media outlets. In online searches, Naver takes up a market share of 70%, which then impacts not just news consumption, but also how people shop and which online games they play. Its influence ranks ahead of Korea's national broadcaster KBS at second place. The country's first privately run TV station MBC is at number 5, behind major dailies 조선일보 and 동아일보. In terms of online news, Naver has a firm grasp of the market, with 1 in 2 Koreans getting their daily news fix via the search engine. Given their fast and far-reaching expansion, the Korea Communications Commission enacted new rules to keep unfair practices by large portal companies in check, ensuring that smaller and less influential companies still have room to stand.
We'll create an environment where fair competition can exist, be it large-scale operators or small companies.
Meanwhile, as the influence of major online portals grow, their social contributions appear to be receding, coming in at about 2% of sales for Naver and 0.7% for Kakao in 2015. This then raising criticism from industry watchers who argue their social contributions must expand to reflect their market dominance and influence as well. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Profits from the so-called Korean wave or Hallyu industry slumped to an 18-month low during the first half of the year. According to the Bank of Korea data, the country's surplus from cultural exports, including music, films, and TV programs, came in at roughly $180 million from January to June. The figure marks a 35% fall compared to the same period last year. Since 2014, Korea had enjoyed a steady rise in surplus, surpassing the $500 million mark last year. However, it has now come to a grinding halt over diplomatic tensions with China over the deployment of THAAD. And it's not only Hallyu products that are suffering. China's THAAD retaliations have taken a significant toll on Korea's overall economy in the last few months. Things have gotten so bad that Korean retail chains, including Lotte Mart, are deciding to call it quits in China. Our Ian-shin reports.
Korean investment in the world's second biggest economy has plummeted to almost half of what it was. On Sunday, Korea's central bank said investment in China from January to July this year came to $1.75 billion, a drop of some 44% on year. Seoul's been hit by an unprecedented boycott campaign by Beijing as a form of retaliation against Korea for its decision to deploy the U.S. anti-missile system THAAD. With sales practically coming to a halt, Lotte Group is selling off its Chinese unit of retail chain Lotte Mart, and the conglomerate says it could end up selling all of its 112 stores. Some 80% of Lotte Mart's stores in the nation have been closed for more than half a year and are racking up losses estimated to reach $1 billion by the end of 2017. Lotte currently has 22 subsidiaries in China, employing nearly 30,000 people. And according to the company officials, some of the affiliates may have to downsize. Another major supermarket chain, E-Mart, is also in the process of leaving the Chinese market after losing over $130 million from 2013 to 2016. And it's not just retail chains. Over the last 8 months, the combined local sales of Korean automobile giants Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors have plunged nearly 45% compared to the same period last year. Korea recently went ahead and increased the number of THAAD launchers, stressing that the system is only for defense purposes. However, China objects that they compromise its security, and it's expected that the anti-Korea sentiment will only get worse. Yin-shin, Business Daily.
The push towards electric vehicles is on. China is now set to introduce new legislation that would end the production and sales of gas-powered vehicles. In anticipation, the auto industry is preparing for a major pivot to capture sales from the large number of car owners in China. Our Elliot Kim has more.
China recently announced its plan to set a date marking the end of fossil fuel vehicle sales in the country. It's the largest market to date to push for a ban on gas-powered cars. The move is expected to accelerate the shift towards electric vehicles, with domestic companies BYD Auto and Bike Motor hoping to pounce on the newfound opportunity. Shin Kuo-bin, the Vice Minister of Industry and Information Technology, said the government is working with other regulators on a specific timetable. He also hopes the production ban will have a positive impact on the environment and the growth of China's auto industry. The world's second biggest economy has vowed to cap its carbon emissions by 2030 and curb worsening air pollution, the latest country to make the declaration following similar announcements from countries like the UK and France. With the impending sales bans, car makers will be forced to accelerate their development of zero-emissions electric cars. But since the ban isn't expected to take effect until at least 2040, auto manufacturers are expected to have more than enough time to prepare. Firms like Tesla, Nissan, and GM are all racing for a piece of China's electric vehicle market share. But so far, generous government subsidies have given the edge to domestic manufacturers. With development needed for everything from powertrains to power supplies for electric cars to mimic the current abilities of petrol-powered vehicles, the race is on to see who can reach a technological breakthrough first. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
More changes to free trade agreements could be on the way for countries across Asia. Top trade officials from the 11 Trans-Pacific Partnership member states will meet this week in Tokyo. They hope to reach a broad agreement on their trade pact prior to the APEC summit scheduled in November. Following the U.S. pullout from the deal, officials will discuss which articles to remove, particularly those added upon Washington's request. With the APEC forum just 2 weeks away, Japan hopes the two-day meeting will yield tangible results, while keeping the door open to a possible U.S. return to the TPP. Korea's air carriers will begin imposing fuel surcharges on international flights starting from October. ending a waiver that has been in place since May. Starting next month, international flight costs will include a fuel surcharge of up to 9,600 won, or roughly $8.50. The move comes as the average price of jet fuel came to about $1.54 per gallon, according to benchmark prices in the Singapore market. Local airliners are allowed to impose a fuel surcharge when fuel prices exceed $1.50 per gallon. The surcharge will vary depending on the airline and travel distance. Recent advancements in AI technology may now be posing a serious threat to the job market here in Korea. In fact, some experts say robots powered by artificial intelligence will replace 30% of all jobs in the country by 2030. Our Park Se-young has more.
How will artificial intelligence change the job market? According to the Korea Employment Information Service, AI-powered robots will be able to replace 29.1% of the local job market. Of the nation's 398 occupations, machines were able to fulfill nearly 85% of the core competencies just as well or better than humans. They were also competent enough to replace 70% of the duties performed by doctors, 59.3% of university professors' duties, and 48.1% of duties done by lawyers in Korea. The results were similar to studies done by foreign AI experts, further raising fears of robot-related job loss. On the bright side, artificial intelligence and humans have different strengths. In terms of memory formation, physical tenacity, sight, hearing, and spatial skills, artificial intelligence is incomparably better than the human workforce. However, humans perform better in tasks measuring creativity and in persuasive or negotiating situations. Experts say the job market will evolve so that machines and humans take up areas that they're good at in their own ways, which is why humans should focus on cultivating creativity and communication skills. They added that the government will need to quickly expand education programs for those working in industries that rely heavily on machinery, so these workers can find new jobs. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Drone owners in China are flocking to schools to get their license after the government unveiled stricter regulations in response to a rash of airport safety incidents. This is causing a shakeup in the world's top manufacturer of consumer unmanned aerial vehicles. Our Lee Ji-young has more.
A buzzing sound fills the sky as pilots practice takeoffs and landings at a flight base in northern Beijing to qualify for a license. A license to fly drones, that is. Now, it's not just drone owners in the US that must be licensed to fly unmanned aerial vehicles, but also Chinese pilots as well, after the Civil Aviation Administration of China introduced a real name registration policy. This is after more than 240 airline flights were disrupted by drones back in April. This policy has prompted not only drone enthusiasts, but also workers like Gao Huiqiang, who works for a construction company, to secure the now mandatory qualifications.
A client of ours has asked us to send some aerial video footage of the construction sites. We're just getting used to utilizing drones, so my company wants someone to study here. Since the laws on drones are being tightened and a legal framework is being built, they told me to come to this drone school and get the license first.
But there are also others who balk at the idea of spending over $1,500 to get an official license, especially given the uncertainty of future regulations.
We now need to consider the convenience of flying drones before we decide to purchase one. If we need to go to remote places outside of the restriction zone every time we want to fly it, it will certainly influence whether we choose to buy the product or not.
While DJI, the world's largest maker of recreational drones, reported a sales decline in the mainland market after the ruling, it is denying reports that claim the Chinese tech firm is considering a withdrawal from its home market. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
And to follow up on that report, similar developments are happening right here at home as well. Many Koreans are also taking training courses to earn certificates that give them an official license to fly a commercial drone. Take a closer look.
The methods and range of drone use are very diverse. DHL in Germany delivered food and drugs to islands made inaccessible by inclement weather. Domino Pizza in the UK successfully delivered pizzas. With more and more businesses using drones, the global drone market is expected to grow to $11.5 billion by 2023. Currently in Korea, no certification is needed for small drones used for recreation or business. However, controlling 12 to 150 kilogram industrial drones require a light unmanned multicopter pilot's license. Applicants over 14 years old can take the test after 20 hours of aircraft operation theory lessons and 20 hours of practice.
Test applicants must first be issued flight experience certificates for 20 hours of flight at an education center. They enter our center for about 10 days and receive education from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
With drone-related jobs being highly anticipated for the future, many are attempting to receive certified licenses. 15-year-old Eun-sung is one such person.
I first experienced drones at school. I found it really interesting, and I would be the youngest license holder if I were to pass. I came to be the youngest to pass the certification and to prepare for my future.
Summer vacation has been spent at this dorm, learning about drone production and operation to prepare for the license exam in October.
I worried a lot that I might break a drone at first because they're expensive and I was inexperienced. But now I know how to operate them, so rather than being scared, I want to learn higher level skills.
Meanwhile, drone licenses are even more urgently required for people in their 20s and 30s looking to find new jobs.
After being discharged from full-time military service, I thought about my career path. I acquired a license with the desire to study drones more. After getting the license, I am taking an instructor's course here to teach more people based on my military experience.
Lee Young-gyu is learning not only how to launch and land a drone, but also how to inspect the craft. Lee is a firefighter. Drones are being used by fire departments all around the world. They are also deployed to accurately determine where rescue is needed, securing a wider golden time window.
With implementation in the future, drones will be developed for victim rescue or firefighting. After that will come industrial drones. Licenses will be mandatory and they will be used in the field.
Interest in drones appears unaffected by age.
I am a retired public servant. By controlling unmanned aircraft as if in reality, through simulation training, I came here to find a hobby and receive aid.
Chae Ki-myung is 75 years old, but he uses drones extensively in his work.
I've worked as a documentary producer until now. I've done aerial shots using small drones, but I couldn't obtain high-quality video footage. I came here to secure better footage after receiving a drone license.
According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the number of drone license holders in Korea rose from 872 in 2015 to 1,351 last year. The figure is expected to surpass 2,000 this year. These license holders are expected to be active in many industries, including construction management, facilities inspection, and smart unmanned farming.
Common current uses are disaster prevention and filming. But in the future, development will also proceed in quarantines or farming on a government level. In 1 or 2 years, there will be many new jobs and development in the drone industry.
From teenagers to those in their 70s, many are preparing for a brighter future, regardless of their age. Drones provide them with endless possibilities and confidence for the future.
And that brings us to the end of our program, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.